Mic check, mic check. Test, test, test.
How are you, sir? It does.
I get extra money for that, thank you.
No, like a, is that Toblerone?
Patty?
They have another one that's just like a clip. It's just like.
Patty.
They're calling the cops. Big country went flying by me on Evergreen, and when I got to this light.
You said big country? What, repeat that? Oh. I did not know that. You know what you can do with Uber? You can schedule them in advance. And we never have problems when we do that. He's like right there on the middle. That's the share. Who's sharing? I got in late one night alone, and Brian was supposed to schedule the Uber and he forgot. And I thought I was gonna, because when I looked out there to see how many people were standing out there, I thought, Patty, can you grab this? I know. I got one right now. Thank you. So it's I think it is a crapshoot though. It's just, look, I was earlier. Look, y'all thought that. I love it. She rocks that.
had my sunglasses on earlier, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm giving Rich and
How
Todd
much
an
is 2
antibiotics."
days with all this stuff? We do the same thing.
And then Nola was talking
Oh,
about,
we gotta
"Are you
go.
gonna make the sauce tonight? The vodka sauce?" I said, "Yeah."
I will call, we have a quorum. I will call to order the City of Kima, City Council, and Kima Public Facilities Corporation Workshop Agenda, June 18th, 2025 at 5 PM. We did not have anyone sign up to address council, so we will continue on. Let's see here. The discussion item is presentation and discussion of departmental priorities and budgetary needs for upcoming fiscal year. You have an extra folder here. I had some of the information that's already in the council workshop packet run out a little bit larger. My eyes couldn't digest this teeny weeny stuff that well. But I don't think what we have in the folder is any different except for some the bank balances, and that says those were as of June 18th. Let's see here is, and hot is on there as well. The logic is on there. So you have kind of the balances of where everything are. I think Ryan also, at my request, included where we are at with sales tax allocations, because we just got a new one in. And then projected if we hit kind of what we think we will the next 2 months. I think that's it though, so. I'm sure you all have lots of questions. I also spoke with Cheryl Johnson, and we normally can anticipate receiving our final numbers usually late June, early July. She said we would not get them till late July. So just FYI.
Personally, I'm gonna hold off on questions. I just wanna hear where you're coming from on some of this and how you got to some of this. And I'm all ears, my friend.
So, Ryan? Oh, the priorities for the year is one of, may I? I'm sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things that we want to start with was priorities for the year. Inclusive of the package that you have, it's a very first swing, first crack at, you guys asked us to make sure that staff confided with putting all the things that they would want and or need for their positions. There's a lot of the council priorities that are not in here yet. We would need to hear what those would be. So we would need to fine tune what those look like if they're not already in here, that staff may have already covered. But if we could please start with the sheet that's you should have in front of you, the balances.
Okay.
Give everybody a moment to pull that one out. Because this may affect some of the questions that you may have. If you look up top to bottom, your general fund, that's where you're sitting right now in both active, what we call liquidity, and then your actual funding. And there's your general fund total of where you are to finish out the year. This is as of yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Then down below, you've got hot, liquid versus sitting in the investment accounts for your hot total. Below that is your KCDC amounts. Below that is your capital improvements. Then you have what's called your growth fund. So the growth fund is what a lot of cities call their rainy day, their reserves where you are. In typical fashion, a city would want to have a minimum of 90 days. Right now, we're happy to report that we're above 90 days. We're at about close to 120 days, give or take, from current budget is what we looked at. Less than 120, but more than 90. Yes, sir. So we're in a good, strong position when it comes to that. However, different from the average city is we live on the coast. Both Ryan and I have discussed this, and I'm sure you probably agree. We want to be in a better position there. So depending on where you want that number to be, the ideal for us would probably be 6 months instead of 3 months, just because of the unknown. 1, 2, there's also the fact that our budget is very, very strongly dependent on sales tax. The average city hopes to be 1-to-1 ad valorem versus sales tax. But if you look at the figures and how we're projecting them for next year, you're more than 3 to 1, which is a great, strong position to be. Great for your taxpayers, great the fact that you're leveraging that off of sales tax. So we're doing a very good job when it comes to that, thanks to some of the people that we have within the community that provide a lot of sales tax, right? That's the good part of where we are. Ideally, for reserve purposes, we'd like to be at 6 months because you never know. So I'll just leave that there as a direction where we would like to go. I don't think we need to get there.
And you said this number was over 90, but under 120.
Correct.
Okay.
So our goal is to get to 180. So roughly, if you were to double, take what our budget is, you want to be at half of our annual budget. So we're roughly $1 million short is what we kind of did general math on, of getting to that goal. And it's only for the sheer part of, God forbid, another COVID happens, right? What happens then? We are very sales tax dependent. What do we do then? So just keep that in mind, what it would take to run the city for 6 months, something catastrophic happens.
Okay, so I got some comments on that.
Sure.
I know we've kind of gone through a couple of city administrators, but, and I know you might not know this, but the growth fund wasn't intended to be our rainy day fund. Part of it was, we made it part of that was, but that's not, the original intent was to use it to do economic development initiatives. That's the original intent of it. You can look it up. I think it's.
I'll go by the guidance.
But the ordinances, I think one of the last part of the ordinances, you know, we could spend it on X, Y, but Z was we could do whatever we want to with it. It was very loosely written.
Sure.
Although I like what you're saying, I just don't want to lean in so much into that. That's our
Certainly.
emergency fund, right? I think we probably should put money aside for that. But that's kind of what you're saying.
And if that's the will of the body to do that, to say, hey, the first 90 days will be rainy day and the rest we could leave for projects like that, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good position to be in again. But again,
Say again, what you think the first 90 days are?
Well-
What's that amount?
the 90 days would be 1/4 of your city budget. So in order to keep us running for 90 days. So if your
Which is
budget
how
is,
much, Darren's not up here anymore.
okay, well, $6 million, six, out of a $6 million budget, you're looking at 1.5, would be 90 days, 3 months.
Okay.
4 months would be roughly 2 million.
But do I understand you correctly that you would leave it all in this fund, but you would earmark X amount for catastrophe, rainy day, et cetera, and then the other could just be utilized above and beyond?
As desired by the body.
That's what we have loosely done. in the past,
Exactly,
right?
yeah,
I just don't want to over-define this as.
Sure.
That's what
No,
it's
and
supposed to be,
that's fair.
Because if you read the ordinance, it's not what its
And,
intent was.
and the beauty of it is if you notice everything that says logic next to it, right? Logic is good. Logic means it's gaining interest.
That's what I say, that's the interest
That's-
earning.
That is interest bearing. So you always want to keep some amount in liquid form, but the idea is to keep a good majority of it, if you don't need it for right away, in an investment fund to try to continue collecting interest on it. So the more you have in there, the more interest you collect, obviously.
But there's no penalty for pulling that money out of that interest-bearing account. So I keep it, just a little bit operating fund, and that's it. Everything else should be in, always. And I see you're doing that anyway. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, we're doing that for the most part with all the accounts. So, except for general fund, because that's our most fluid account.
And you said 6 months was 1.5?
Off a $6 million budget, it's going to depend on where we land this year.
Okay.
So take whatever the budget ends up being times 25% or 1/4. And that's where that's where we would land. So not that we would approve the budget that you're expecting, but if you were to budget your budget for next year, proposed as it was now, then yeah, it's a much higher amount. Because you're more like 8 million, but we know that that budget's probably not what's going to be finalized. So it all depends on where you end for your general fund. And Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Oh, you're
I'm
doing
not-
great.
I'm kind of going based off our notes and our discussion, what it was, so. So now that we've started there, everybody knows where we are with all of our funds. This is a snapshot of where we are with everything that we have. Okay. The next sheet that you have is probably, it looks like this, much smaller print. It is your sales tax projections.
And this number is brand new, Ryan, right? The
This is
415?
brand new. So this is fresh, hot off the press, it's not
Yeah.
even available yet out, because we just got it right before this meeting. So we filled this all in. Ryan's gone ahead and done projections for July, August, and September. Those are the numbers that are shown as highlighted. So those are rough projections. Should we hit those projections, then the number in green is where you're gonna end up total. Right? But remember, these are 2 months in arrears. So July's number will be affected by how we did in May. August will be a directive of how we finished in June. September will be how we do in July. Okay? So those numbers fluctuate, and it was merely taken by taking an average of the last few years. If you look at the records dating back the last 4 to 5 years of records that we have here shown before you, that's where Ryan felt the most comfortable putting those together. The beauty of that is if we do hit these numbers, you'll be 5% higher than what you expected to be. Good problem to have. However, there's a lot of different scenarios that have to do with that. Yes, Lupe is here now. Awesome. Yes, Alberto's is here. Great. Yes, we're soon going to have Coconut Grove. That's awesome. But we also have some pending and looming possible things going on with certain restaurants. We also know that there's some restaurants on the boardwalk that are no longer going to be part of our tax roll. So we know that there's already some differences. What those will be, we would have to do an exact study to find out what the numbers, how they kind of align with one another. And we don't know yet because there hasn't been enough history of the restaurants that we just mentioned that are either online or coming online soon. As such, conservatively, we've looked at a 2% increase in sales tax for next year to be conservative.
That's
Can always-
very conservative.
I'm sorry?
That's very conservative.
Again, that's where we have it as a starting point. Should we want to go, again, higher than that? We take the risk that if we don't hit that number, obviously, that would be on us. I'm always going to lean more on being conservative, just because we have to do that based on what we do. But I can also follow the lead of the will of this body. Your decision, whatever you all decide as a whole. This is just a projected snapshot of where we are. And well, obviously, all the numbers that are not shaded are where we are exactly. The numbers that are shaded in yellow is where we expect to finish those last 3 months. If those 3 months hit those numbers, we're assuming that we will hit those numbers, then the number in green is where you will end. Please keep in mind that those numbers are split between your general fund and then your KCDC. So 1.5 of that goes to your general fund and 1/2 goes to KCDC. Hence why the next 2 columns that are shaded in blue to the right separate what those numbers would be. Any questions on that page?
I personally felt like 3.5 was being conservative.
Sure.
But you know,
We could illustrate
Just to
what
see
that
where we
looks like.
land, right?
We could illustrate.
because
what
there's
that
a
looks
lot of
like.
wish list stuff on here. We
Yeah.
just gotta vet that out.
We can look at that any which way that we desire. You let us know the direction on that. Again, without direction, and we took just a first swing at it, we're looking at, hey, let's start at 2% just to be sure. But if you want us to look at what the scenario looks like at 3 or 3.5, then we can do that. And we can bring that back. Is that a will for us to do that, to see what that looks like? It sounds like a resounding
I
yes.
think we should do that anyway.
You can look at it anyway, but I like to start with 2.
Okay,
I actually like that. But happy to look at 3 too.
so,
That's because you brought up earlier, we're on the coast. You never know what's going to happen here.
Right.
So
so is it fair if we do this in halves, right? It sounds like 3, 3.5. Can we do 2 that we've already done, 2.5, 3 and 3.5, and bring that back to you?
Just go to 3.
Just go to 3.
Yeah, 2.5, 3.
2, 2.5, 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Right.
only reason I say that is, again, there's a lot. I mean, you're upside down $1.4 million with the budget that is right now. So we have a long ways to go. I always want to see where it's at. 2 ain't gonna be, I don't think 2 gets you, well, none of the 3 ain't gonna get you,
Sure.
but I'm just curious.
So Ryan, we'll come back with showing 2, what does 2.5 look like, what does 3 look like? Perfect. Sounds great. Are there any other comments or questions on sales tax before we move on to the next sheet? Is that, so 2, 2.5, 3, we'll bring that back. The next, everybody's got this one now.
Which
Look
one?
at what the sheets are, the add-ons. Have you handed those out yet, Ryan?
Yeah, they're in the form.
It's a three-page Excel spreadsheet. Yours looks different than mine, I'm sorry. The request list?
Oh, yeah,
There we
okay.
Do you have an extra one, Ryan? I can borrow? Just like a little-
Yeah, I was like, I can't see, I called him, I go, I cannot see these. I'm old.
Okay, so we struggled with how to print these, so it's easier. We added lines. We're gonna get this on bigger paper, so next time it'll be on bigger paper.
And
I can get the easel board in front of me.
be sure that we leave, a couple of copies out front for visitors,
Absolutely,
for Shalia.
absolutely. So this is just, as we're looking at this is wish list items. This has not gone through any cuts yet. Our cuts. And any time that you normally have a budget, there is the initial round of cuts that the finance director will do and or the city manager before it even comes to you. But I do know that, I understand that you want to see everything at the first swing. This is where we are. This shows you a breakdown by department as to what the requests are. Okay? So they're broke down by department all the way down on certain things. If there's any specific questions as to what these things are, everybody except for court, I believe, is represented because there's somebody at the window. Beside that, I believe every department is here that can answer some questions.
I'm assuming college reimbursement is an incentive program within our city employee staff
That would be a program.
that we've talked about before.
Mhm.
Just one incentive we've discussed.
Right.
Code books, is this something that couldn't be found online? Is this different from something that, okay,
So every year, every several years, they change they update the codes. We were using codes, personally, we were using books that were several years old.
yeah.
So we just need a brand new set till we have them. So if anybody comes to question and calls on a certain code book, that we have it for reference. Unfortunately, it's one of those, I hate to call it the old Britannicas, encyclopedias type thing that we all probably grew up using before we had the internet and the phones, but that's exactly what that is. Trust me, it is
And
not
that-
something that we would like to have.
That's not a huge amount, anyway, though.
Chamber speakers, is that for in this room?
Yes,
17 grand for the speakers in this room?
yes. Was this something that was through IT or is this your item, Natasha?
Some of the stuff was through IT, yes.
Okay.
And then we got quotes from different AV companies.
That's neat. I hear a dude talking out there. I'd be in trouble hearing people out there. 17,000 for.
You're talking
without our
audio
gear.
equipment.
Yes, it's to replace, we only have one working speaker, and I think it's in that right-hand corner, or this one here. The other ones are actually turned off, they've got them turned, that one turned up to the max, and we don't know how long it's gonna hold, so, yeah. It's struggling, but that's what it is, it's just the sound equipment, everything else has been, mostly replaced, as far as like the mics and things like that, so.
And again, if we say no to these things, and it's just, we can't do it, we can't do it. It's not a problem. We asked to see what we wanted it to do to operate in a certain way, and
In the transit district,
the transit district is shown as a full amount listed here under general fund. However, one of the approaches that we would like to consider is having a portion coming out from KCDC, a portion coming out from HOT, and then a portion coming out from the general fund. This would have been part of the presentation that came in and did at the last meeting. It's not something that we choose to do, to have an actual transit program within the city to help our employees get to their jobs, to get our seniors get to their appointments, and also help tourists that may come to any one of our hotels and need transit throughout the city. This would be a way for them to get to and from Walmart, to and from Target without renting a vehicle. And the idea would be to market it as such. We would have QR codes and set up at every single hotel. Also work with all employers. You've got Walmart's got over 300 employees. Boardwalk, I believe, has plus or minus 800 employees at any given time. Some folks do not have transportation, not to mention every restaurant we have. Some folks don't have a way here. This also offers connectivity. A lot of the city's employees come from outside of the city. So a lot of them may come from the Bay Cliff, San Leon, Dickinson, Lamarck, Texas City area. So it allows folks to be able to transit back and forth. So sometimes when you're driving on 146 and you see folks driving back or walking or biking back and forth, those folks are probably coming to work in Kima or from work in Kima. That's why I felt
Are these requested items in the proposed budget already?
they should all be requested in there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I missed the council speakers on the department request list. Thought I had it, I moved it from the city secretary and I meant to move it to the IT side. So that was not in there, but it is in the proposed budget. So this proposed budget is absolute worst case scenario on expenditures, no raises, and the revenues are based off the same exact tax rate we have now, kind of without moving that, and just kind of this is more of a doomsday, and when we get to the end, it'll be sunshine and roses. So I know there's been some head scratching probably on some of the numbers that. But there's no, I don't anticipate us having that big of expenditures. So
May I also just to piggyback up on Ryan is saying, right now we have the preliminary numbers from the assessments. We know what it's not to exceed. We know it'll be less than that because folks are still protesting, right? So we know it won't be exceeding that number. So best case scenario, depending on where you're looking at, worst or best. The highest rate scenario, we already know it won't exceed that number from the ad valorem side. We've already looked at those estimates. If you keep your tax rate the same, what it would be. The decision we would need is as you start having scenarios, just like we did with sales tax, we brought you numbers. Do you guys have numbers in mind that you would like to bring back where you'd like your property tax to be for this next year? Are you considering bringing it the same, going up, going down? If so, what points do you want to show you back as
The
examples?
goal should be to lower it, and the goal should be to have some sort of staff raise. That should be the starting point goal for that.
Okay.
The question is whether or not that's doable. But I certainly think that you go into this with the hope that you can lower property taxes a bit and we can get the staff raises.
So similar to how we did, or we're proposing to do for the next meeting, with sales tax at 2.5, 3, 2.5 and 3, what are your perspectives that you would like to see for a tax rate? For example, you're at 19.999. Let's just call it, we're almost at 20. I forget the decimal points after the first 3 nines. So where would you like to see it? I mean, we could compose a plan that says, hey, we're going to try to drop it a penny. You know, what do you want to see on that end? And also typically for COLAs right now, your CPI this past year was 2.91, probably going to be close to that or higher this year. Are you looking at 3? Are you looking at 4? What do you want to see come back at your increases for staff? You want to see a table that shows what 3, 4, 5 looks like? What do you want us to bring back to you for scenarios to look at?
I mean, as of today, it's hard to see beyond 3 on
Okay.
that because we're so far off the mark as is.
Okay.
And what do you think as far as sales tax number? Drop it down,
Property tax.
property.
Keep the same, no new revenue, and drop it a cent or it's a 9.99, right?
19.999. So what we can do, we can
Drop
go
it to
back.
19 and 8 and.
It was almost 18. The last year's no new revenue was
19.9.
17 point something.
Okay.
So that's what we'll bring back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dropping it.
Without knowing what this year's no new revenue will be, at least that'll be a starting point for everybody.
I think that's a good starting point.
That way you'll also know what a value of a penny would be. We call it a penny, what a decimal point would be.
I mean, we have a starting point that's way off on this end here. I think we should try one over here and then try to beat these things in the middle as best we can.
you said 19 and what? What was that one? Did you say 2 rates?
19 and 18, right?
Well, it'd be whatever we're at now, right, as I understood it,
Then a no new
dropping
revenue.
it to a 19 flat.
Yep.
And then whatever the no new revenue is.
Right.
Which is almost 18. So we're looking at 2019, 18.
Right.
Just paraphrasing.
That's correct.
We'll do that. We'll bring that back. And we'll do the same with the COLAs.
Natasha, could you just give us a kind of an overview of this? Or some of these things we already have that
Yes,
you've requested.
Yeah, is there one specifically you got a question about, or you just go down?
Well, just kind of go down the line and say what we already have and are paying for and what would be above and beyond that. I think that'll help me.
Yeah, and I kind of have some explanations up here on the screen too, if you want to take a look at it. See if I can pull it up.
Again, can you make it larger
Keep
for
going.
us old
Keep
folks?
going. Keep going.
Okay, peak agenda, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so peak agenda management, that's the annual fee to continue with that program. Muni Code of Ordinance's website, that is our, existing website where all of our codes are, like where you can go search and everything like that. And that's just the annual fee for that. Live stream, that's what we're doing right now, annual fee. PIR portal, that's Next Request, we're currently using that, and that's the annual fee for that. Laserfish Records, that's the one we just purchased, and that's the annual maintenance fee for that one. Cell phones records pool, that is to convert the file type to a usable format, which would be PDF, when we do open records requests.
So it would be easier to search, word search for you all?
Yes,
Okay.
and I believe that one is also where we plug our cell phones in and you can export the data. So that's that stuff too.
Okay.
Yeah, and then digital content creation, I believe that's Canva. And it's kind of a citywide thing. We all kind of share that one. And then new PC for Alondra, like it says, she has Aaron's old one and it's about to give up. So
Okay.
I do have a backup PC that I can give her now, but we would prefer everyone to kind of switch over to laptops in case there are emergencies. And, you know, we can do that, so make it more mobile. New scanner, I have a very old scanner at my desk, and to make it compatible with Laserfish, they have to be Twain compatible. So I'll have to upgrade it. Right now, there's a workaround where I can click and drag documents into Laserfish, but we want to be able to direct scans. That's what that is. And then miscellaneous tech overages. Laserfish has told us that their prices will increase between 1% and 3%. I don't quite know what it'll be yet. So that's just for overages for any of our existing annual fees and stuff, so. But they'll let me. know more.
And that'll be for next year? Is that on a physical year or our fiscal year?
I believe it's fiscal year.
Okay.
For everything, yeah. And if you want any of the backup documents for any of these requests, I do have everything. I can send it to you guys or whatever you'll need. So.
Is this miscellaneous tech for overages kind of based on all the problems we had in here and the rewiring and the this and that?
No, not necessarily, but we could use it for that. It's mostly for, if Laserfish does increase in price, we'll have that money to cover any overages and price increases because, you know, everything's going up in price. But because I had to base it off of what the current quote was that they gave me for all tech. And then, you know, just add a little, in case it does increase, we'll have a little bit extra in there for that stuff, so.
But there's gotta be more room than that because if Laserfish is $5,500 and they go up 1% to 3%.
Yeah.
We're talking about 15,000,
No, I mean for all the other stuff.
but for everything
Yeah,
else. You think you can anticipate everything to go up
I
1%
don't
to
know.
3%?
I don't know, but if it does, I would like to have some in there to cover that, because you know how tech is, you never know if it's gonna go out or.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. I'm sorry to cut you off,
Go ahead,
Natasha,
yeah.
but that Brian and I just experienced, we were talking about this earlier. One of our softwares that we have got bought by another company. And they just sent us a letter that says, hey, we're going up 5%. No rhyme, no reason, just, hey, we bought this company, not doing anything extra, so we're fighting it, we're going back and forth with them. But we're gonna have to make a decision whether we're gonna keep that company or not. That's the type of thing that we just don't know, it's the unknown.
Yeah.
So,
It's just a real cushion just in case with, you know, how tech is.
Well, Isaac, you can hopefully help me remember best, but it seems like the last 3 years, we've had about an $80,000 hit to $100,000 hit that we didn't think we were going to have. One was what, the server going down and having to go to cloud, and then our IT having to be restructured and a lot of new computers and things like that. So and I think we've talked about the server being more rearranged once more here. Is
Yes.
that in here somewhere?
Without going into too many of the security possibilities into it, obviously it's open session, but there are some needed upgrades to our current IT that we need to look into.
Okay, all right.
And I'll just leave
I
it at
just want to
that.
make sure we've talked about that. That's in here
Yes,
somewhere.
and I believe all
It's
those
in the
things are
IT
in there.
section.
It's
Okay,
under the
all right,
IT section.
perfect.
Yeah, we felt the need to make sure we showed everything at this time
Okay,
and prioritize which ones are kind of, this is a need and this is a want.
okay.
And it's either we're going to need to do it now or we're going to need to do it in an emergency setting, which may be more expensive. So certain things that, I mean, I could just go off of that. We
So
had
this whole
one,
document, are there needs and wants?
these are all needs.
Because it would have been nice to have needs and wants separated,
Yeah,
as opposed to dumping
Or
this
at
whole
least
thing
color
about.
code them.
yeah.
We could do that.
I don't really do it.
Needs
We
are,
could color code that, sure. We could color code We can do it as red and yellow. We'll do red as needs and wants as,
Yeah, red is, gotta have.
and we'll do the wants as yellow. That's okay.
Well, thanks, Natasha. That helped a lot. I appreciate it. This is a Patty, brochures, maps, rack cards, et cetera. I guess I would ask the same question. We had some cards this last year and I think a map with that, which ones are new and not so new?
We did have a brochure this year. We need to update it. We've had some significant restaurant changes in town.
And that never stops.
And that never stops.
Yeah.
So basically what we do is we try to get it as close to perfect as possible at one particular time. And then we put a QR code on it so that the website can be maintained. And I'll touch on the website in just a minute as well. So the website can be maintained. And basically you see the map and you've got the restaurants, but then you can also go with the QR code and see what's new. We've also just moved the website back under Civic Plus. It's going to look and be much the same as it did before, but now I have access to go in and I can update it instead of having to send all of the updates to a third party and wait for them to get to it. I can go in as a new restaurant opens that just happened this week, and it's still kind of in the process of the transition. So, but we do need to have some of these printed materials. We get a lot of requests for them. Just today, I had I put together packets for a group of, it's 20 rooms, but it's more people. There's a family that's coming to have their family reunion here in town and requested kind of courtesy bags that have information. So we put that kind of information. We put information from the boardwalk in. We put a sheet that talks about what's going on in Kemah this weekend and some of the different, different places that they can go and different kinds of entertainment that are available. And so that's for all those kind of printing and brochure things.
Anybody have any other questions or comments for Patty?
Yes. Uh-huh. We have not really talked about it a whole lot. We've historically underutilized the time that we have. We are in the process. We're working right now. MDR has just sent over is taking some of the artwork we already had for Walk the Dog and the piano music nights. And we'll be putting those up on there shortly, just kind of kept playing catch up on it. But I think we definitely, well, it's kind of hard to use. It's kind of hard to use that particular board. I think we'd get better bang for our buck if we did, and a better use of funds if we did things outside the city. But we've discussed billboards, and we've also discussed some of the signage like at airports, different places where they have electronic signage that, you're coming into Houston from wherever and look up and see Kemah, come to Kemah, have fun.
We also in case you consider we had a meeting this week. It's been over a week. With a company that allows us to really find out where our visitors are coming from.
Oh, yeah. This week.
It was this week.
It was like yesterday.
Wow. We found that a lot of our visitors are coming from places we didn't know. We were to pinpoint, for example, last year's 4th of July, where not only how many visitors we had, but where did they come from? We're surprised to see that a good majority of them didn't come from the area. They came from outside. We had some visitors from San Antonio, Austin, Beaumont. I mean, you name it. There were some folks that came from different areas. A good group of them came from all the way down Corpus.
Corpus. And then as far east as Louisiana and a couple from even further.
Which tells us that folks do visit the area from outside. So it does let us know where we market. We know what these folks are into. What do they like? Again, some people might think it's invading their cell phone, but we know what they like, where they come from, what kind of TV channels they watch. Do they watch sports? Do they not watch sports? We can get it down to what type of food they like, just based on some of the places that they visit. So it gives us accurate data to be able to market correctly. So very, very powerful tool that we're considering to possibly engage with. But we also wanted to make sure that we put our dollars where we maximize the dollars. Nothing against anybody that comes before us or anything. We got to make sure that we maximize our dollars that we're spending to the best of our ability. So even when you had the folks come from Gulf Coast Transit District the other day, they pretty much told us, we'll let you market on all of our buses at cost. Go right ahead. They want us to do that type of stuff. We probably never marketed on, Galveston Island. I was on the island this weekend. I noticed that one of their transit buses had place ad here. I bet if we asked them, we could probably get it on there for little to no cost. We've got to let folks know that we're here repeatedly and consistently. And it's tough. It's how do we do it? And that's what some of these things are.
Councilman Oliver, does the boardwalk have any kind of app or engagement like he's talking about where y'all already do that for your your visitors?
Yes and no. So we track a lot of our social media ads. Our social media spend is tied into Google Analytics, so we get some from that. Specifically to the cell phone data, we don't.
Okay.
But there is probably opportunity for partnerships in that. We are trying. The boardwalk is actively trying to do it. It's just it's an initiative at the corporate office level, not so much the local level. So
Yeah, I just thought if you did, you might know something about it already,
I've used it in the past.
Okay.
Not specifically this vendor that the staff talked to, but I've used a similar vendor, a competing vendor in the past. In a previous life, it is a very powerful tool that we used in the past for marketing, knowing where they came from, targeted ads, targeted kind of media spend. When utilized correctly, can be very powerful. It'll also let you give staff the tools to then validate when somebody comes in for a hot fund request saying they bring all this traffic to town. It'll provide an avenue of validation or verification of that after the fact for those requests as well.
Down to hotel occupancy, actually.
It got to the point where we found out where the folks that came to visit, where they stayed, how many people stayed where.
It'll actually also tell you where they likely visited before they came into the geofence and where they visited and where they went after.
Big
the visit.
brotherish,
So-
it's just.
So
Remember
when
that leakage study that we did on KCDC, like 17, 18, somewhere like that? I mean, they were going specifics to,
Yeah.
where they bought this, how many went to Walmart before they came.
Well,
I mean, it was-
Retail coach did it recently.
Yeah, it was,
Right.
I mean, I remember the time thinking, I need to see how much the Bloodline cell phone case costs, because, they really get into the.
So,
Well, I asked them when they brought that, I said, well, how can you tell if they went to, Ross and then go to the pet store? And they said, we could tell with your phone within 5 feet.
no, it doesn't have any personally identifiable information. So it's not tracking, for example, it's not saying
Well-
Doug was here. It's saying there was a person, there was a person that was here and did this.
But data is knowledge. Knowledge is king. And for unique stuff where you just look at this, you see from Women, as much as projected 3.6 is from sales tax, we're the opposite of those cities. Most cities are the other way around. So keep that in mind. We need to make sure that to keep the cost of services and quality of life in Kemah, we also have to maximize who we are. If we're going to be a destination, which is what we are, what makes us special, then we need to make sure we're the best destination we can be and market accordingly to keep that status quo or grow from it.
And Patty, to make sure that we don't double dip, when you say promotional items, would that be all the promotional items that the city needs throughout the year? Or are there promotional items in other departments that I'm not seeing here?
So I tried to I tried to make it to where our promotional items can do double duty and do kind of pull with the tourism promotional items, kind of pull in the heavy load, because getting the tourism K, the Kemah K, It works for, for promotional items when we're doing things here locally and when we're doing things outside. So it kind of covers most of it. I think some of the other folks have a little bit for themselves as well.
Well, we've only got 20 more minutes. We've got a long way to go. Maybe we ought to just, I know Jerry's not here tonight. So maybe we don't have a lot of questions for Court. She can,
I can sum my questions up pretty quick.
okay.
We can go and waste more time. We're gonna rewrite this to needs versus wants, right?
Yep, got it.
Reflect this.
Red and yellow.
Reflect this to reflect only needs and put the wants off to the side.
Okay.
And as we work through it, we can add wants in there
Yeah.
if we can.
That would be good.
That's what I like to see. You talk about priorities. I wrote down my priorities. My priority number one is to lower taxes, if possible.
Say that part again, Isaac, sorry.
You asked priorities
No, say that last thing you just said. Very last thing.
for these?
Lower taxes?
Got it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what it is?
Yep.
You know what I said about this?
That's what I thought, yes, sir.
You said priorities. My priority number one was lower taxes. It may not be realistic. I'd like to explore. We talked about that. Priority number two is I think we need to lean into economic development. That leads to what you're saying. And you just talked about how much more money we make in economic development, sales tax revenue than we do ad valorem. I think we need to feed that. So whatever is in here needs to lend to that, in my opinion. My third priority is I want to appease the PD. I think you guys are doing a good job. You have an awful lot of money in there, and it's really gonna go for any department. We need to justify all your major increases. And then I want to know how it aligns with performance outcomes. Like, we give you more money for X, how does that make you perform better? Is it a compliance issue? Is that what we're doing it? Or is it gonna, to meet community expectations? So those three things. On public works, I want to explore the options on their equipment. I know they need it. I asked Jerry to send over a list of what we pay that we contract out, and I didn't really, she sent an answer, but didn't really answer my question. My question is, if we buy the equipment, how much money are we not spending that Public Works is gonna do with this equipment? It's not gonna even out, but it's gonna help come through there. And then what do the finance options look like on that? If we decided to finance it, can we lease them? Is there another piece of equipment option? Because that's a pretty expensive piece of equipment. And I know Rashard's done a great job taking care of stuff over there, but historically, we haven't been good at it. You know, so God forbid something happened to Rashard and we got to take care of equipment. I just want to make sure maybe we have a maintenance program, or can we lease it? Something else. I need to know. I need more information on that.
Yeah, we got some leasing numbers.
We've
That's
gone as
great.
far as
Yeah, you
getting
just sent those
leasing.
over.
Yeah, and I had asked for the same thing from Jerry, a list of everything we're farming out that can come in-house if we upgrade this equipment.
And then my last one was, I think on hot, I mention this every year. I always make the joke that I'm kind of blind on this side. I close my good eye and look at the hot funds and through some of the stuff. I think it's time to start cutting the fat. Like we approve some of these hot fund things year after year after year after year. And it really isn't what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to see these people and then they're supposed to take off. You know, we did that with the boardwalk one time. We seeded them with the Donald stuff. All of a sudden, man, they do it. It's one of their most successful events. We have other things we're working on that we use hot funds on. Just cut some of that other stuff off. We don't need it. We're gonna be cutting.
And again, we mentioned being able to validate those things. You can then correlate what your return is on those when we have accurate data. We can't just go by what somebody says.
There you
So
go.
very powerful tool that if we're able to obtain it, I think gives us a lot of leverage to be able to say, no, you didn't bring 100 new visitors. You only brought 40. And of those 40, only 20 of them.
But let's
say
be
you came.
realistic though too, right? Because I could write anything on a piece of paper. So we need evidence.
It's gotta be quantifiable.
Yeah. So that's gonna happen, but to go right back to the economic development stuff, you know, you mentioned it, like there's businesses that are leaving, there's businesses that want to come here. When you go, like we go to these conventions and stuff, and the very first thing anybody wants to know when you talk to them is what incentive package you can offer them to come here. That's our competitive edge because we're just a 2 square mile city. Most people don't pay attention to us. We have to really like fight hard at it. So we need to think about that whenever we're doing some of these budgets, that we need to leave some of the things open and be able to provide economic development packages for people to stay or go, you know, leave where they're at, come here, or start playing here, or start whatever it is. We're getting lucky on some of these, you know, but we could really drive it. And it really could change a lot of the big picture of the city. And property tax, we're gonna have to prepare for the idea that property taxes can go up, start now. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Well, we know the intention of the state of Texas to essentially eliminate property tax. I think we're in much better shape than most cities are if and when that happens. So we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. However, it's also an onus to the residents for us to do that. You know, it's just a responsibility that we have as public servants. So we have no problem taking on that challenge. I do want to point out one thing that is on here, going back to what you said about PD. I'm assuming the sentiments about public safety are across the board for everybody there, just based on some conversation we've had. But the general consensus is that there's a request here for some police officers. This is a backup request, and I'll tell you why. You've already authorized us to go after the COPS grant, which is due next.
Go after
Wednesday.
what?
The COPS grant.
Oh, okay.
There's a grant that you've authorized for us to go after. If you remember, this is the one that pays, there's different ways of doing it. You can pay 75, 50, 25, and then wean off to help pay for some officers for the first 3 years to kind of soften the blow. Versus the other model is just 50, 50, 50 for those 3 years. I'm always going to lean towards the 75, 50, 25 model. But in that understanding, I want you guys to know that through your support to do that, we are pursuing that grant pretty heavily. So there is a match component to that, obviously. You supported us doing that. But just so you understand the intention of what we're trying to do there, best case scenario, if we're funded, is there's also the third option. They could fund all of it with no match for 3 years. But after 3 years, we're still responsible. So keep that in mind, keep that aspect of it in mind. As we mentioned, when we brought this to council, you guys already approved it for us to go forward with it. But also tied to that is how aggressive do we want to be with our public safety? And that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. In any city you go to, people are going to care, am I safe? Are my streets good? Is my trash getting taken out? So on and so forth, and then kind of work down the way from there. I think we do a pretty good job of keeping the public with their quality of life without being affected by the tourism that we do have. However, you have 4 shifts. If we only get 3 officers, how are we splitting those amongst those 4 shifts? There's also abundant forms of task force and different initiatives that we could do that we need to be a part of if you want to attack this at the rate that some of you have mentioned that you want to attack it in. So yes, the COPS grant is a possibility. Yes, we can do it in stages. We can only apply for 4 this year and 4 next year if that's what we want to do. But we want to know, make sure at what rate we're going to do that. Because a grant is a grant. If we get it, great. If we don't, we don't. The leverage you have is, unfortunately, Kima, as low crime as it is, just by the sheer population numbers, has the second highest crime rate in the entire county. But there's no crime here. It's just based on your population numbers. So do we want to attack that? And at what ferociousness do we want to attack it? And how are we doing that? Because as we finalize the grant, we're ready to go. Do we put 2 on night shift? Do we put 2 on day shift and make them traffic patrol? And do we add a couple folks to these, these 4 task forces we could possibly join? Organized crime, auto crime, FBI, DEA. How deep do we want to go? Beauty is some of these folks, we get money back for their pay. So it might offset some of these expenses. We want to make sure that we're treading at the speed that you guys want us to.
Well, I think another thing they need to look at is training as far as DUI is concerned as well, because that's a huge issue in this town. That's something that needs to be looked at. Look, I'm always going to be the big proponent for public safety and police. I've said this many times. We are a tourist town. If we become a tourist town that people are afraid to come to, we've got huge problems. So, and I commend the PD for, I've noticed a complete, it's like a different PD. And it's really easy to make your crime rate look low if you're not arresting anybody. That's a really good way to make your crime rate look low. But they're out there, they're getting the job done. And I think we're seeing that this is having a positive effect. I don't think you dial back on that.
Okay.
So, that's where I stand on it. But I will say that I see a greater police presence in Kima now than I had seen for a while. And I'm one of those people that when I see a large police presence, it makes me feel good. It makes me, I'm not bothered by that. I think it's a great thing. I feel safer when I see cops around. So I'm all for doing everything we can maintain at minimum, increase being my goal. But that's just me. Last I checked, I'm just one vote. Still just one.
Lieutenant, would you say our crime rate is based predominantly on visitors?
Welcome to the show.
Well, I will tell you, it varies. It depends on time of year because we are a transitional town. We have tourists that come in all the time. But I will tell you, most of the time when we do have issues, it is from outside of the city and necessarily from within.
Well, I mean, that's what I would think, just off the top of my head, that that high crime rate is parallel with the visitors we have here, not our residents, traditional.
Yes, ma'am, but you also have to look at too, we have some larger cities that actually border us because you have League City, you have Seabrook across the bridge. You also have, you have to take into consideration Hitchcock, Dickinson, Lamarck, all those other areas because people do travel. So
Anytime you've got 2,000 residents, upwards of 4 million visitors, it's usually going to be the case. We love that they come and they bring their dollars and they spend them. You know, you've got one of the higher performing Walmarts in the area. You've got a boardwalk. You've got these great restaurants. It's going to attract people, either to and from, as they're commuting, they're stopping in, they're going to stop in and eat. You know, it's a good problem to have, but it comes with that.
Caesar, do you and Ryan feel like we gave you enough direction tonight for our next meeting?
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to thank y'all for having the looks on y'all's faces when y'all sat down, because I was expecting it. So I was like,
One
this when everything added up, I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm glad we all have the same face. So
One thing I'll add on this, I'm interested to see what this looks like when it's broken out between what has to happen and what we're wishing for. But from on the public works page, I mean, we've talked a lot about the equipment that's needed. Richard, if I could, or Caesar, whoever, on the road, traffic control and road and street maintenance. Traditionally, we've been really terrible about maintaining the stuff around here, and roads have just fallen apart. The one-way circulator is putting pressure on roads that traditionally didn't have pressure on them. That may be partially a KCDC problem in the future. But I'd like to see a breakdown of, you've got striping and all kinds of stuff in here. Some sort of breakdown of what your priority list would be of where you're going to kind of attack these infrastructure challenges and things you want to get done. Because the one-way circulator is not the only road that needs to be restriped constantly. I mean, there's a lot of the stuff that just is dated and gets beat up. I mean, Evergreen Memorial is already getting beat up by concrete trucks. I mean, there's already a curb. It's been hit twice in the last 2 days, I watched a concrete truck bounce off curb. That road already wasn't built for concrete trucks, and it's getting used by it. So, so I'd like to see that at some point. It doesn't necessarily need to be the next meeting, but I'd like to see how this breaks down across the city. So, and I would like to see other options for the mowing. It needs to get done. I agree. You need a mower that is not you guys with weed eaters in a ditch, but, I've cleared a lot of ditches with stuff that didn't cost $500,000. So
Well, and that's a great point. I want us to understand that the Public Works Department is going to overtake a lot more inventory now than it had before. Case in point, you look right outside those windows, there's 146. There was no need to maintain it the way we did before because it was always been a TxDOT property. But do we want to maintain it to our standards and no disrespect to TxDOT, or do we want to maintain it to their standards? They're contractually obligated to maintain it 2 times a year. If that area outside gets maintained only 2 times a year, we know what it's going to look like. We saw what it started to look like and aren't even done with the project. So one thing that we challenge our staff to do is to get a square footage of every single part that we need to mow, a linear footage of everything we need to trim and blow, so we can have an accurate number of what the man hours would be. Now they're going to have 57 acre park to be taken care of at a different level than it was before, as well as this area up here. Included here, not included in this breakdown, is the fact that there was a motion or request made by KCDC to add another public works body or 2 to look at. Those are not in this budget.
That was my first thought. With all of this stuff, you're gonna need more people.
Right.
Are we still down one?
We're currently down one, yes. Yeah, but we also are using some grant funded folks to.
We're down more than one. We down one, but we've been down for several years now.
You've also got maintenance of certain ditches. You've got the Jarbo ditch component, the ditch that resides right behind Kima Oaks. Again, it goes back to the level of maintenance. Right now, every time that we got to get that cut, that little small parcel is about $7,000, right?
Yes.
So, and that's a very small parcel for that price. And that's probably the best price that we have. So yes, that's what you asked for, the breakdown of what we could save by doing it with a piece of equipment and in-house versus not. That's something for us to look at, but we need to get all that acreage down to find out what we're maintaining.
I did send an email to Jerry with a list of all the ditches that we maintain. And a while back, I believe I had put some photos out there, and I can get the photos of what these ditches are looking like right now. And when it rains, some of the ditches we do mow with the zero turns, you can forget about it for about 2 weeks until it dries out. So when we do get back to mowing those ditches, it's even higher than it would have been if we had the right equipment.
Several times that I've been here already, we've had zero turns stuck, so.
Just see that big old snake on South Kiva Drive? Did y'all catch that?
The what?
Big old giant snake
It
on
was
South Kiva
big,
Drive? You know, working the
huge.
dishes. Did you see that?
I hadn't seen it.
It's like it was big, man.
They-
Big. When I saw it, I thought about y'all. I was like,
Was it in the street?
Well, it was, somebody, I saw the ditches had freshly been,
Then maybe so.
yeah, and.
Surprised they didn't mention it.
Flip-flopping in the- It was stretched about halfway across the.
Wow.
We've got about 4 minutes before we have our next meeting that we need to start on time. Thank you all the departments for giving us so much to digest. And councilmen, please mark your calendars for 5 o'clock before every second meeting as we move forward and get this under control for next year. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 5:57. Okay. Patty, where'd she go? Oh, Patty, will this be on the website?
Yeah.
So these 4 sergeants, it's one person. Technically, 4 people. Sergeant is the
Okay, so that's an either or. Yeah.
Doomsday.
I think I want to figure out.
fully staffed. I just met him. He's only just running his resume.
Thank you.
Damn, did y'all let them try it? Damn, resignation paper?
Yeah.
1 minute, okay. I know, this is 5 seconds.
We will get this under control. Scare you to death up front.
No, for some reason it doesn't work over here, but I have like. that. It works extremely well.
I have I have a tea towel hanging on the refrigerator at home. It says something about what's cooking. It's got a picture of Frank and Diana.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, what's our time to cook or something like that. It's got his silhouette of it.
No, I have one. This is what,
Oh, you
this is what he gave. Yeah.
Do we have any details?
I don't know, there's some, like, it's
Okay.
not there when it's over here. And maybe because it's like open space, but I tried to do it here and it didn't all work. It like, you're gonna shoot 50 times and it'll finally come up and like. I don't know, so that- Yeah. No, I know, that's what I'm saying, like. We can hear everything in here. It's on the-
Seeing we have a quorum, I will call to order the City of Kima, City Council and Kima Public Facilities. Let me start that over. My mic was not on. I will call to order the City of Kima, City Council and Kima Public Facilities Corporation regular meeting, June 18th, 2025, at actually 6:02 PM. The first thing on our agenda are the pledges. Ryan, I was told you would lead the pledge for us tonight.
My voice is kind of gone, so Mr. Eisen do it.
Go ahead, man.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. See, I could go during the pause, and then I start laughing. Oh.
Next on the agenda is a moment of silence. And next on our agenda is to address council, and I believe, let me find this here, the first one on the list is Shalia Thorne.
Good evening, council, public, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. I would like to just commemorate Tommy Kendricks. We had her service, and we thank the city for allowing the cronies to use the community center. It was well attended. And not only did Ms. Kendricks have a great effect in the historical, during the 80s, she was a council member. So just my salute to her, condolences to her husband and family. It's kind of the elephant in the room, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. And that's the appointment of the vacant position for city council. The election and the new council members are duly elected. There is no if, ands, or buts about that. And it was a cordial election. There was no mudslinging. It was very well received. But at the same time, I'd like to note that for instance, in my race, I didn't get 10% of the votes, 20% of the votes, 30% of the votes, or even 40%, but 48.5% of the votes. This council has the opportunity, according to state law, to elect whoever and whom or him or her that they choose. I would ask that I be selected to fill that vacant position. Not negating that this council has every right to select whoever they want, but the citizens voted, and this was a close election. I bring a lot to the table, and I ask for consideration on that, because otherwise, if one of the other candidates is not selected, this council will be selecting someone that was not voted on, which is your right, but was not voted on by any citizen of the voting public. So please keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
And next on the list is Cheryl Gonzalez.
Oh, yes, I'd like to put in a good word for Sheila also for city council. She has a degree in finance, which it would be nice if each one of our counselors had a degree in finance and also a real estate license. That would have really come in handy in the last 15 years, 20 years. Sheila came in with within 10 votes of winning last election. She's honest, diligent. She has a lot of attention to the concerns of each resident. She, in her own private life, works with young people on volunteer basis, has a really long resume. I'm sure you know all about it, Marine and all of that. But year after year, year after every 2 years, we see that a councilman resigns 8 or 9 months before it's time for them to get for re-election, and then somebody gets nominated to fill that post during that interim time. So it's not a new thing that's happening right now. We've seen it over and over. But at any rate, in order to put in a bid for Sheila, my question is, that I would like to ask is, why not? Thank you.
Yeah, we don't have any proclamations and presentations tonight, so on the agenda are the mayor's comments. I just want to say good evening to everyone. And first, on a very personal note, it's with great sadness that I share with you tonight that our Chief of Police, Raymond Garibay, has suffered the loss of his beloved mother, Susie Garibay. Here in Kemah, we're more than just a city organization. We're a community that supports each other, kind of like a family. During this difficult time, we ask that everyone keep Chief Garibay and his loved ones in your thoughts and prayers. And on behalf of myself, the City Council, and the entire City of Kemah's family, we offer our heartfelt condolences and steadfast support to Chief Garibay. We stand with him in this time of his sorrow. And I want to thank you, Shalia, for mentioning Tommy Kendricks. I had meant to go into that. I don't feel the need to do that, but I did attend her memorial and read a proclamation that was not read in-house at a city council meeting for her last Saturday. It was a very wonderful memorial for her, and I did want to make note that she was on council and helped me a lot, gave me a lot of advice over the years. Thursday, June 19th, which is tomorrow, is Juneteenth, the day that marks when freedom finally reached enslaved Texans. With that momentous occasion taking place right here in Galveston County. It's a very meaningful day for us to remember, and we encourage everyone to pause, reflect, and join in whatever celebration that's going on in the area that they so choose. And it won't be long before we have stars and stripes and a little Kemah blue on the streets here. Our July 4th parade is set for Friday, July 4th. It's always on the 4th. And with this year's theme, red, white, and Kemah blue, honoring our 60th birthday. The city of Kemah is 60 years old this year. Parade entries are open, so if you want to sign up and join, please visit KemahTX.gov and register to be in the parade. A new tradition is starting this summer. It's called the Battle of the Badges Blood Drive. It's coming up Wednesday, July the 2nd, so right before 4th of July, and it'll be at the Kima Community Center. It's the fire department versus the police department in a very friendly showdown, all for a great cause. Walk-ins are welcome, but if you can, there's a QR code on the website and on some flyers out front that you can pre-register by scanning the QR code and picking a time you would like to go in and donate blood. Speaking of preparedness, hurricane season is upon us. It's quiet so far, knock on wood. But it's very hot very early, which is not a good sign. But this is the best time to get ready when it is quiet and slow. You can sign up for KEMA alerts through kematx.gov, and those alerts and updates would come directly to your cell phone. If you'd like to learn more about storm prep, this flyer here, I think there's some out in the foyer, and it has QR code on it, and it's also on the city website. It's a hurricane preparedness and safety fair that'll be held in League City at the Civic Center, and that's Saturday, June the 28th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The event will feature seasonal outlooks, preparedness vendors, touch a truck, family activities, and a lot more. So you can pick your flyer up or go on the website and get the QR code and look up everything. But thank you always for coming out tonight and for your support and making KEMA so special for all of us. Next, we have councilman comments, and I will start with Councilman Dustin Oliver tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. The only thing I have tonight is just keeping Chief Garibay in your thoughts and prayers. I've known him for several years now, and I know what family means to him. So, anyways, definitely hurt tonight and just thinking about him. So that's all I got.
Councilman Messenger.
Yeah, I really just had the opportunity to meet his mother. My place for dinner before he is the quintessential family man. Anybody out there that's lost a parent, they know kind of what he's going through. So same thing. If he's listening, if he gets word of this, just we're thinking about you, pal. And yeah, sorry for your loss.
And Councilman Lee Wallace.
Well, I'm going to agree with what they said about the prayer. Prayer works. We prayed for your mom.
Absolutely. Yeah, my mother fell and broke her hip and is recovering. It's been a long 2 weeks.
Prayer works. And also thank everyone for coming. Appreciate seeing familiar faces and maybe new faces. But I want to urge everyone to please sign up for the KEMA alert. Don't count on, I think it said on Facebook, Karen with her Facebook page telling you where the storms are, where they're not. So this right here is the way to do it. Thank you.
Councilman Saldana.
I love that post, by the way. Whoever did that, kudos. It's all true, actually. Yeah, I'm the last guy, so we have a lot of prayers for Garibay and his family. I actually know his nephew very, very well. He's a city councilman in Helena. They're really good, very close family. So I feel bad. Having lost my mom, that's terrible. So prayers to his family. Thank you guys for being here.
Next on the agenda is the city administrator's report. Stacey?
Thank you. Most of the stuff that we'll address will be on the agenda specifically. But just to piggyback off of that, we also encourage everybody not only to sign up for our KEMA alerts, but if anybody, yourselves or a neighbor is part of whatever vulnerable population, please sign up for our steer list. We want to make sure that we know exactly who's vulnerable within our community and get those folks signed up as soon as possible so we can really get them the help that they need to make sure we know where all our evacuees or folks need to be should we need to reach out to them in such a case of emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, reports from staff. Council, the reports are in the packet of all of these reports. If any of you have anything you want to pull or speak to or ask anybody a question about, otherwise they're just for your consumption.
Mayor, if I can just point out
Absolutely.
the police report, this is the first time you've seen that one. Again, all of these reports are an effort for us to keep our transparency as to what we do, but also keep ongoing tasks of what's happening. If you notice your calls for service from your PD for the month of May, where they're at, almost 1,100 calls would put you on pace to be over 13,000 calls for the year, which is a very, very large number. to have for a department this size and a city this size. This is a breakdown of how it's broken down by call volume, percentage of time used. So you know where the effort is being shown. We'll be adding a little more tweaks to this report in the future to show down the breakdown of your crime rates, so on and so forth, in comparison to future years and year over year. How does this May compare to last May? Obviously, over time, we'll be able to do that, similar to how we've done with some of the other departments. Thank you.
Number 10 is our consent agenda to approve the minutes of the 6/4/25 City Council regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger. Do I have a second? A second by Councilman Lee Wallace. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. 11A, consideration and possible action to approve the second amendment to Resolution 2025-25, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Kima, Texas, designating application for grant application submission and signatory rights for contractual documents pertaining to the 2026 City of Kima SB 224 Catalytic Converter Grant Program.
Very quickly, Mayor, on this one, we're happy to report the grant agency keeps asking us for information and keeps asking us to make changes, which is a good thing, means we're still in the running. So much so that we need to get this document back to them. It's, I think, the last thing that we're pending. They've also invited us to go to Fort Worth in July to go defend our application. So we are probably in the final list of consideration.
Oh, that's great.
So we just need this formal edit so we can get this submitted and move along in the process.
Do I have a motion for 11A?
I'll make a motion to approve the Second Amendment Resolution 2025-25.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger, a second by Councilman Dustin Oliver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. 11B, consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 2025-28, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Kima, Texas, to accept the formal resignation of a council member and to appoint a person to fill a vacancy on the city council and providing for an effective date. As was mentioned earlier, anyone can nominate. We're accepting the resignation of Councilwoman Teresa Vasquez Evans, and we need to consider an appointment for this position for the remainder of the term. And just another thing, as we enter into budget season, please keep in mind that we need to hit the ground running. I know we won't get our final numbers till late in July, but budget season entails special meetings. Special meetings entails having 4 council members rather than 3 for a quorum. And it would be, as in the past, it's hard to get everyone together for special meetings. Everybody plans on the regular ones. And so we set the budget workshops prior to a meeting. So it's easy for everyone to kind of come to those typically, but at the end, we do need to have special ones quite often, even though I try not to. So just some things to keep in mind.
Welcome. As if it is, I mean, if it's our job to do this, I think it's important that we put somebody in that, wants to do it. That's always hard. And that's gonna be good at it. I'm gonna nominate Darren Broadus, and the reason I'm gonna do that is because nobody's better at budget than he is. He's the second hardest working councilman up here. So, I mean, and he's willing to do it. So I think it'd be very seamless to put it back up here. So that's my nomination. Make a motion to appoint Darren Broadus.
Caesar, do we need a nomination for accepting her resignation and a different nomination, you think, for the nomination, or can it be all in one?
Actually,
Do it.
I think it'd be all together, correct? And Kyle's on, I believe, right?
You should be.
Okay.
I would have to text him. He's sitting there waiting, but
I do believe you can do it as one motion.
do 2.
Right.
We're
I make a
gonna
motion
take,
to accept Teresa Vasquez Evans' resignation and to nominate Darren Broadus for city council.
so we have Can you do one motion for Teresa's?
I'll make a motion to accept Teresa's resignation.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Isaac Saldana and a second by Councilman Lee Wallace to accept Teresa Vasquez Evans' resignation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Now, do we have another motion on the floor?
Yes, and before I get to that, I want to make one more comment. It is not in the KCD bylaws, doesn't this dictate how many council members can be on there. Many years ago, and I've mentioned this story many times, I'd applied for KCDC. There were some open spots, 3 council members appointed themselves to there. I didn't like it. I think it would be hypocritical if I did that now. So should Darren Brodesson be appointed tonight, I will resign from KCDC. So I'll send him a letter. And then, I mean, I'm up anyway, they'll probably get somebody else in there. I've served 10 years on KCDC total, maybe longer.
I think yours is up in February anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, I've done 10 years. You know, it's a long time. We've accomplished a lot on there. My time as president, we did things that just hadn't been done. We became more transparent than everybody else. We were the first people to invest our money. We led the way on that. We did a lot of things that I'm very proud of, but again, this isn't about me, but should we do this? Just want to make it known that'll be my intention to resign from KCD. So anyway, I'll make a motion to appoint Darren Brodesson missing council position 1.
I second. Seems like a seamless move to me.
We have a motion by Councilman Isaac Saldana, a second by Councilman Lee Wallace. Do we, before we vote on that, do we need to provide an effective date? I know that Darren is out of town right now for.
I don't think he'll be back in time for the next meeting, so you would have to appoint that date to be the next available meeting in July. So I'm pretty sure he's
So the
not back.
July 2nd meeting?
No,
Or
what's the one after
for
that, the 18th?
Oh, then the second one in July.
But you could be sworn in?
I guess he could be sworn in anytime,
Yeah.
can't he? Yeah.
Yes.
okay.
Unless there
It
are
would
any
be the
more
16th.
nominations.
I don't necessarily have a nomination. I called quite a few people and you're not lying. Nobody wants to do this. But I do, I don't necessarily think that this is a thing that has to be done tonight. I don't think we've really, I mean, there should be sort of, and we talked about this before, that you come up with some sort of a process. Because as Bible said, this is rarefied air. This does not happen that often. This is only the second time I've seen this happen. So it
I
is
was,
sort of
I was nominated midway through a term,
Where was
but
that?
yeah. But it was
So was there.
many years ago, but there wasn't a process. It was just like in council like
Yeah.
tonight.
Well, I spoke to Kyle about this, and he said that the section of the codes that talk about it just it didn't really address it. So if you want to do something different, you are inventing something that's not part of the process. So, yeah.
Any more comments? We have a motion by Isaac Saldana. We have a second by Lee Wallace. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to say nay. I would rather wait and do it at the next meeting and see if we can. I think we're rushing it, and I think we probably would go to Darren anyway. But I just don't see the reason, especially if it's not going to be at the next meeting. I would prefer to take a little bit more time on it, so I'm going to be a nay.
We have 3 in favor and 1 nay. Motion carries. 11C, consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 2025-29, a resolution of the City of Kima, Texas, approving an agreement with the State of Texas for the temporary closure of a state right-of-way, Highway 146 South, Highway 146 North, Highway 146 South Bypass, Highway 146 North Bypass, Highway 96, FM 518, FM 2094, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th Streets, and Bradford Avenue and Kip Avenue, along with connecting intermediates in Kima, Texas. If you all have any questions, I'm sure Lieutenant or Caesar can answer these.
This
but
is-
what we've done in the past.
This is very
Just-
brief.
Go ahead.
Well, no, this is just, TxDOT has required us to submit this resolution as written. This is up to those streets. It'll be at the jurisdiction of us as our traffic plan would account for. We did have a public workshop where we had folks comment on the plan. We introduced the plan. We'll have one more public workshop in addition to at 5 o'clock on July 2nd. But it just shows exactly the areas that we want to make sure that we have pedestrian safety during the 4th of July and we can get folks in and out of here safely. This is a requirement from TxDOT to pass this resolution as is.
I have a comment and then I'll make a motion. I want to thank the police department, specifically Sergeant Charo and Chief and everybody that's been involved. This has been a Herculean effort of collaboration that I don't know I've seen since I've started standing in traffic on busy days in 2011. Much less TxDOT coming to the table and being willing to allow some of this stuff. Maybe we've never asked, and now we're asking, we're following the rules. But nonetheless, this has been a Herculean effort on staff, chief, and Sergeant Charles. So I appreciate that as one of the individuals in the room that stands out there on 4th of July and plays dodgeball with cars. So thank you all that this is,
We
if
asked,
this works, this goes a long way. I'd also like to thank, be on the record and thank our neighboring cities that have offered help. That's kind of a shocking thing. Haven't seen in a while. So to Clear Lake Shores and the city of Seabrook, city of League City, the Galveston County Sheriff's Office and the Texas Department of Public Safety, to them as well for coming to the table willing to help. It is a crazy night. This is probably the best plan we've ever had. It's not a new plan. This is a plan that our previous councilman and previous supervisor of the police department put together with Jacob Bigger at the boardwalk. It's just nice to see the efforts and the collaboration finally. So we have a history of kind of being isolationist around here, thinking we can do it better than everybody and do it on our own. And then we get in trouble and have, drunk guests parking in our residents' yards and just causing chaos. So this alleviates that. And I just want to thank the staff for all the effort. And if nobody else has a comment on it, I'll make a motion to approve.
It's a new day.
so we have a motion by Councilman Dustin Oliver, second by Councilman Doug Meisinger. All those in favor? Any opposed? 11C also passes unanimously. 11D, consideration and possible action to approve a quote on additional expenses tied to holiday lighting projects. This has to do with electrical being updated, edited, installed, et cetera, on 6th and 7th, I believe.
Yes, Mayor. This is along the lines of the installation for the holiday lights and any other lighting that we may want to do in the future. We paid for decorations before that there was not proper power at those poles. This would be adding the power so that we can properly use the decorations that we ordered. This was the expense we expected coming when we approved this a few meetings ago. We just need to make sure we got the 3 quotes, followed our procurement policy, and we're ready to move forward with whatever facet you want to do, whether you want to do 6th and 7th, 6th, 7th, and that area in between. It is the will of the council what we'd like to do. We recommend at the minimum the 6th Street to be done so we can add to the decorations that we have already on queue. This will be a one-time expense, obviously, to get the receptacles placed. And this is coming before you to be taken out of hot. So this item and the next item are essentially 1, to approve the work, and 2, to approve it coming from hot, since it is a hot qualifiable.
Ryan, this one of the hot things, but there's plenty of room in hot for that expense.
I thought we had a Christmas.
There was a expense already that we put out of this for hot, but also if you remember in the first part of our meeting earlier in the workshop, we did present what the hot balance is to date. So that is your most accurate hot balance that's available. Yes, that is correct. Present.
That was-
Yes. 218 of that is liquid, current, present day.
And the Sixth Street pole GFCI receptacles are 25, 30 total.
For just Sixth Street, yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess I'm saying that if they want to do Sixth Street only,
Correct.
they can break that number down.
Yes.
I am struggling with this alley lighting as a hot item.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with the first two. I think that makes sense. The 40, I agree that the lighting on that alleyway needs to happen.
Needed.
Okay.
I am not arguing that. I just might need some convincing that.
Well, the idea was to use it for holiday lighting as well. It's in line with the other stuff, but if we want to make it to where you take a portion out of one account, a portion out of the other, again, that's your will.
Yeah, the alleyway lighting could be used more long-term and all the time. Whereas the Sixth Street lighting and maybe even the Seventh Street would be more for holidays in general. Not just at Christmas, but some other times as well.
Okay, so on the alley lighting, do we have fixtures back there? This is just putting in GFCI receptacles. What are you gonna light it with besides the so
Is it the poles, Richard, that are back there?
There are poles there now.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. The poles are there already, and the lights in the alleyway work, as does all of the other lights. The black poles are ornamental. Right now, we have like
The
6
ones
that,
that look like the gas lamp.
right.
Ornamental. Okay.
Those are the lights that we speak of. And the idea is to just add the electrical outlets. So when you want to put the garland and those holiday lighting, it can plug in. That's pretty much the scope of the work.
So this is adding two poles in the alley that already exist and are illuminated, but you should decorate them more and illuminate them more on holiday occasion.
Yeah.
Does that clarify some?
Correct.
Whereas the Sixth Street, it doesn't have any.
None of the poles have electrical outlets, any of them.
6th or 7th, or the ones in the alley.
and they know to not put these outlets down at the bottom of the pole.
Yes.
Put this somewhere on the top of the pole.
Well, the consensus is to put them up higher so they won't get tampered with.
Yeah, for the traffic, the walking.
Because if they can
pedestrian
touch it,
Yeah, yeah.
Dustin, you talked about the hot funds, something that Aaron had shown, this Texas two-step deal that's. what's that? And the way it's defined, A, has events, that's a literally mean, that events, but there's some has events, which. Part two is the 9 categories. 9 categories are convention and visitor center, convention registration, advertising the city, promotion of the arts, historical restoration and preservation, sporting events, enhancing or upgrading existing sports facilities, and signage directing the public to signs and attractions that are visited frequently by hotel guests in the city.
I understand.
You said you had a hard time, you said convincing, so I was just reading it for you.
Are we putting signs on the alleyway? It clarified. I'm good. I don't have any other questions.
I see your point on that, I kind of agree with it, and the issue with everything up a little bit later on, because that was a much bigger issue later on this, but I do think with this one, that this does sort of qualify, and then there's a long-term benefit to it later, that it can be used, so that, I can, this one I can actually get behind.
So do I hear a motion out of you?
Well, that sounds like it does.
Uh-huh.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve the quote on additional expenses side to holiday lighting project.
Do I have a second? No seconds.
Are we talking about all three? Or do you
That's
wanna
his
get
motion
down-
at the
Yeah,
moment.
That is
motion's
his
on there.
motion.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger, a second by Councilman Lee Wallace. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, why did it take so long to get a second?
Motion carries unanimously, Natasha. They're playing games up here. Okay, 11E, consideration and possible action to approve a budget adjustment on additional expenses tied to 3 holiday lighting projects. Do I have a motion?
See, if you're playing games, if I motioned against it, that'd be playing games.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve a budget adjustment for the additional expense for 3 holiday lighting projects.
And do I have a second?
I'll second again.
Okay, we have the same motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger, same second by Councilman Lee Wallace for 11E. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 11F, consideration and possible action to approve the sale of Beaver vacuum melting and casting machine. I think Caesar can explain this, but
I
it's,
hope so, because I don't
it's a-
know what that is.
Oh, I
Well,
want
it's
to
a-
hear the story again.
This
Story, I
is-
just wanna hear
well,
it
we
again.
ordered an item and didn't get it, got this instead, and I'll let him elaborate.
So Public Works was in need of an ice machine. We ordered an ice machine. We have verified and proven that we ordered an ice machine. And in their infinite wisdom, the vendor sent a jewelry melting machine that we has vehemently said, we don't want this. This is not what we ordered. There's the emails, everything is in there. They apologized and we said, well, great, give us the shipping stuff to send back. To which they said, no, it's easier for you to keep it. We don't want to send it back, so keep it. So we have proof that they told us that we now own it. Now it is technically city property. In order to get rid of city property, we must go through this process.
And the piece of machinery that they did want, the ice machine, was also delivered and
It
is
was.
correct now.
It is up and
So
running.
This is above and beyond. It was a boo-boo.
This is, and it's not our boo-boo. We would own it if it was ours, but this is the predicament. We would be more than happy to send it back. It'd make it easier not to waste everyone's time and paper and ink to put this on the agenda, but anytime that we have city property to discard, we have to do it the proper way.
Do I have a motion?
How do you sell this thing?
We put it on the auction and hope that somebody out there really, really wants one and that we can,
Good luck.
I asked Richard to buy it earlier. He said he's mulling it over.
Good.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the sale of the Vevor, is that vacuum melting and casting machine.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger and a second by Councilman Dustin Oliver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 11G, discussion and possible action to approve a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with REACT. And Caesar can speak more elaborately about this one.
Certainly, REACT is a 501c3. They've been around since 1962. We do have a local chapter, and essentially they are assisting or volunteering to assist in different capacities. They primarily volunteer for emergency management through emergency communications. They are also willing to provide assistance during any special events. They've actually agreed to assist us with a few bodies for the 4th of July. They're a group of volunteers, some of them retired police, retired fire, retired military, who come together and they essentially provide communications and or traffic control during the time of special events. This is a no-cost MOU. They're always soliciting donations, but this is, they would be helping us with disaster preparedness and disaster response, as well as any non-disaster activities such as special events.
You had me at no cost.
I figured, but I wanted to fully explain so everybody knows what we're doing, so.
Any other questions or comments for Caesar?
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with REACT.
And do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion by Councilman Dustin Oliver and a second by Councilman Lee Wallace. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 11G carries unanimously as well. 11H, consideration and possible action to approve the second amendment of the agreement for professional service with Safe Built LLC.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Our current code enforcement officer also does our fire inspections, Mr. Mike Garcia. He apparently took on this role before at a previous city manager's request to do so. He has now decided that he would prefer not to discontinue that service. We've accepted that resignation as such. Unfortunately, it's instead of being without code enforcement for the next 3 months, we do have a vendor that apparently we had discussed before carrying these code enforcement services. It happens to be the same group that does our building inspection, which is Safe Built. The services incurred would include a person here at least 1 full day a week, along with their admin hours. So we would not be charged by citation or an admin fee, we'd be charged an hourly fee for their full time. It is slightly more expensive than the fee is now, but this does give us a carry forward to decide if we want to do this, how we want to proceed with this in the next budget cycle.
Yeah, I think while we're going into budget season, because of this resignation, I think we need to explore some options of how to build this back in the budget. But to
This,
get us through budget time, this is a solution to that.
his resignation becomes active 30 days, so technically first week of July, it'll be active. We need somebody to help us through July, August, September.
Now, this would be for 3 months.
So just as a stopgap, really.
You're correct, unless we choose to keep the
Yeah,
service
unless
moving
you
forward.
choose to go forward with it in the next budget cycle.
You know, the amendment you have in here is dated 2023.
Sorry?
This amendment is dated 2023.
I apologize. That does say 23. I'm sorry, I do apologize. No, that is correct because you signed a contract with Safe Built originally back in 2023. This would amend that original contract to now include code services.
Any comments or discussion?
I read it before, we talked about it before, this has to be done.
Yeah, I don't think we can go without code enforcement. And under code enforcement services, I think we get a little bit more with this company, attendance at council meetings, attendance at municipal court if necessary, things like that, that weren't anything, we're not involved prior to.
Were we not receiving that earlier with the other?
Well, Mr. Garcia started with us as fire inspection only, and we added code enforcement along the way. So he kind of inherited it and did it for a short time and then didn't want to do it. So
He just wants to be fire marshal.
yes, he would prefer that role only.
That was his original role to begin with.
And he's under his contract, the ending of it goes through the end of June, so we have a little bit of time. So you either need to decide to accept this tonight or to give staff direction of another solution maybe. But Michael Garcia will be, our next meeting is on the 2nd, I think, and his term will expire at the end of June.
There would be a gap then.
A small one.
Well, the other groups is ready to start whenever. I would like there to be a small overlap for handover of any activities. Obviously, if you pass this tonight, that could occur. So that's why we wanted to bring it. Also, you notice when this was handed to us, it was the day after, the day before our last council meeting. We couldn't add it to the last agenda.
Yeah.
And took us some time to obviously come up with a backup plan.
How do their rates compare with Garcia's?
Higher, considerably higher. But it's also, they're here for a certain amount of time versus here with Mr. Garcia for code enforcement, we're charged by task, by visit.
I would say his was more reactive. When we called, he
Right.
came. This would probably be a bit more proactive.
They know they're gonna have their hands full.
They are aware. They do provide work, I believe, in code enforcement for a nearby city. But also, I do know that when Aaron sat in this chair before, the one thing that when he handed me over a sheet of paper that was provided to him by the previous council on things to work on for this next year, the number one thing was code enforcement. So I do know that's a need and a desire for us to be more prudent with, and I couldn't ignore that.
Comments, suggestions?
I mean, we can talk to death, but this is clearly the best option. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the second amendment of the agreement for professional services with Safe Build LLC.
We have a motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger. We have a motion by Councilman Doug Meisinger. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilman Isaac Saldana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 11I, consideration and possible action to approve a budget funds transfer in the amount of up to $13,849.19 from HOT contingency fund to the general fund for payment of additional officers to include a group from Galveston, Harris counties for response assistance for July 4th event. And this would be a transfer from HOT to
The-
general.
Correct. The idea is to cover these expenses. Originally, the only thing we have an actual invoice for today would be Galveston and Harris County Sheriff's Office to make these payments. The reason for that is because they need ample time to rev up their staff to have them here in time. This would, being that we don't have our own SWAT presence, this would allow us to have a SWAT presence here for the event should we need it. Carry over and also for traffic control purposes. This is also, this has to be updated. We were getting 2 tower cameras rental for a month. Now we'll be able to get 3 for a month, which will allow us to use these to have before the event and then also throughout afterwards for our busy season. The idea of food and drink, there may be a possibility of some of that getting donated. We're still working on that to make sure exactly the stuff that we're requiring would be donated to feed all the volunteers and the staff that would be here on the holiday. Officers, I believe, this is how many officers? 9? So it's 8 or 9 officers, excuse me. No, that's 9 officers because it was 8 up above. 1 additional dispatcher. And also this would be our public works personnel also being on call. We have a lot of cones and barricades to move. And there will be a lot of effort to make sure that we have this, to execute this plan accordingly. We are expecting over 60,000 people, which is about 3 to 4 times the average daily attendance on any busy Saturday or Sunday. We're going to need pretty much all hands. This does not include any staff. This does not include anybody that's already on salary. If there was on salary, this would be for any hourly employees who would need to come on board. This is a qualifiable hot expense. We did clarify it not only with the state, but also with Kyle, just to make sure that we're fully comfortable and confident we can take this expense. Not having this expense come out of here comes out of your general fund if you choose to, approve us having it, which means you're going to run your general fund over. It is a day that we can quantify that there are heads and beds. So this would be a qualifiable, security does qualify as an expense for that. And that's what these expenses would be taken for.
Well, for me, there's no way on earth I'm gonna vote for this to come out of HOT. That's a public safety issue. That is not, we're not selling any additional hotel rooms by doing this. I don't say that the expense isn't necessary. I'm not saying we don't need to do it. I'm just saying find another pile of money for it. Again, that's just me. And I always know like this, well, we can do it. There's all kinds of things you can get away with.
Sure.
But this is not even remotely keeping in the spirit of what you spent HOT on. I mean, this is about creating events, trying to draw. I mean, believe me, if you just said we're expecting 60,000 people, we don't have any trouble drawing people to Kima that weekend, right? This is not doing that. It's a necessary expense. I think it's a but I see it as public safety, I see it as traffic. You got other people to go after to get a yes on hot. I am absolutely not gonna be comfortable with that coming out of hot.
Again, we knew that we needed to incur the expense. To your point, we are requesting essentially two things tonight. One, to incur the expense, and two, to take it out of hot. There is a caveat to that, with the understanding that your police budget is going to be over by X amount of dollars based on this, and Public Works, should we proceed with this. So as long as, maybe it just wasn't budgeted or thought of it in that manner when we passed this budget last year. So again, to execute the plan that we brought before you and before the public to get this done, to get people in and out and have people here safely, this is what it takes. And whatever account the body decides to take that from, assuming that you do want to support the expense, I guess it's two different matters.
So, 4th of July comes around every year at the same time.
Oh, I guarantee you, I will guarantee you,
I think it's a good idea to go ahead and budget for this.
I will guarantee you that this will be handled accordingly next time, but also just keep in mind that other cities do actually take their security for special events or holidays, in this case, to be covered this way. So it is your will, as
So
whatever you want to
You
do.
said that you ran it by Kyle, right?
Mhm.
And you said you ran it by the state.
Correct.
Tell me how you did that.
Patty, did you already verify this with the state?
I verified it through, not directly through the state, but through the guidelines. Basically, I put it in front of the attorneys with the Texas Travel Association, and they kind of grimaced a little bit, but because they don't like to spend it on things that aren't very narrow, but they said it was allowable.
That was your takeaway.
They have very narrow definitions of where they go.
There's a lot of things you can spend hot funds on, but we didn't think this was one of them. There actually aren't a lot of things you can spend hot funds on.
Well, it's the hardest dollar to spend. for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Maybe I should rephrase that. We spend a lot of hot funds on a lot of things, but there's always these things that you can stand on one leg, tilt your head to the left, squint your right eye, and go, maybe, yeah, I can kind of see it like that. This one, I just don't see it at all. I mean, this is about keeping people safe. This is about the more officers we have, I think the safer our officers are, and I think that's great. I see the value in it. I'm 100% for it. But there's nothing about this that makes me go, man, think of all the extra hotel rooms we're going to sell by doing this.
What I was hoping was going to happen when we asked you to come up here is that you were going to say, oh, yeah, they resoundingly said yes. That's not what you said. You said they grimaced. Did they grimace as bad as he did?
Nobody grimaces as bad as
Nobody grimaces as bad as he.
Trust me.
From Doug to gavel throw, where would you say?
Drop it in the middle. Right in the middle.
I actually agree with Doug. Like, if you think it's like, you say all these people are coming, would you say they're coming for the fireworks? It clearly says fireworks are not.
Actually, it doesn't. I will argue that all day, but
No, it really
it says the cities can't pay for fireworks. The city's not paying for fireworks. A business is paying for fireworks and the city is sponsoring an event. That's not what that, that two-step does not say anything about sponsoring an event. Not to rehash last year's argument.
But you're supporting an event, right?
Sounds like what a sponsorship does. It supports an event.
All right, are you for this?
I have questions about the tower cameras. The police officers, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a feeling if we don't do it, staff's going to spend it anyway. I don't know if the $2,500 in tower cameras are totally necessary. Nice to have.
Yeah.
I know that's not putting a big dent in this number that Doug's going to be upset about, or the overage, but it is some dollars, it is some overages saved. I mean,
Why do we have extra dispatch?
Call volume on that day, ma'am, is usually
Oh, okay.
extremely high, probably
So do
more
we
than.
actually man dispatch with another person?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I did not know that. That's good to know.
There's things that we're probably not properly budgeted for in the past. And if it's our will to do that future, and not put things as a hot expense, that's fine. That's not a problem. As you mentioned, more public safety, that's fine. Just understanding that if you do approve us to pursue these expenses, that you will likely have an overrun on your general fund because of that. And if that's okay, then that's fine. I just wanted to be very clear and open on that.
Fair enough.
But I know it's, but that's the whole thing, is, well, we'll do it right next year. That means
Sure.
we know we're doing it wrong this year.
Hey,
So
I-
it's like,
yes, sir, absolutely.
so.
And again, I mean, no offense to anybody by this, it's just, it was not accounted for in this way.
No,
And it's probably 2 times a year that we probably have something similar with the capacity of these 2 events that we
Yes.
host.
I understand and
individuals
respect
responsible
why.
for that are not here anymore.
Well, but
What would
again,
be, what would be the other one, but parade?
Not New Year's.
New Year's. But we have a responsibility to, 1, the residents to keep them safe, and 2, to let you know. In whatever order you want to take that in.
It's on Friday, it's gonna be worse.
Mhm.
In my opinion,
Sure.
it's, when it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday, somehow they have to go back to work, you know, I don't know.
This one will be.
This is
painful.
a double whammy.
It's gonna be crazy.
This one will be big.
One thing I want everybody to take into consideration is that, yes, it is going to be on a Friday, but you got to remember, most people are going to have off that Friday and carry over through next week. So that's Friday,
They'll
Saturday,
start on
Sunday.
Thursday.
They'll start
Correct.
Thursday. Most people will get off half day.
Who are
For
these
sure.
people that get this? City employees and bankers, that's because like
Well, I mean, you could argue, like some folks are off tomorrow, but some are not,
construction, I promise you, is working at it.
probably.
Does it cover medical as well, or is it just,
This does not cover medical. Medical is already accounted for through
Through
the boardwalk.
the boardwalk and also Galveston EMS.
The boardwalk staffs, fire personnel, and medics down in the entertainment district. And it is not uncommon for them to take calls off boardwalk property, just before I get questions about it. We do not stop them when they're on our dime from responding to emergencies. They
Thank you, sir.
go where they are called.
We appreciate you.
We just all got to come together that day.
Yes.
What say you, Councilman Wallace?
if we can't move the money from HOT, does this wipe out the whole proposition, or we're not gonna be able to have these additional officers?
No, sir. We're recommending what's brought before you tonight is twofold. We feel strongly that we need this, but we did not have it budgeted in the general budget. So there's 2 options. Allow us for an overrun, which in this case, we would seek that if we can't get out of HOT. So it's either, there's 2 things before you. 1, allow us to proceed with this, the expenses needed to execute the plan that we brought before you and before the public that we've been working on, that Councilman Oliver mentioned earlier. And 2, can we pay for that out of HOT, or do we take it out of general fund and have a likely overlap?
I always have an old saying, I don't understand everything I know about this, but I'm kind of leaning toward what Doug's saying. It doesn't sound right for some reason.
Sure.
Well, Kyle's on the phone, can we ask him?
I asked him to join us, so I'm glad to hear that he's on.
Can he give us 2 cents on it?
Kyle, voice in the sky?
hear you, yeah.
We're discussing the item considering HOT and the use of funds to cover expense for additional staff for public safety during the 4th of July. I know we had a conversation about this. Could you please give us your 2
I have
cents?
no reservations about using hot funds to pay the overtime or extra grants of police officers during the 4th of July celebration.
Hey, bud, can you mute your computer?
Or I didn't understand that.
I'm asking if you could use your computer.
Speaking to your mic.
That might
Speaking to the TV, you know.
That might be ours. That might be-
Can you mute your computer? We're hearing an echo.
Kind of irritating, actually.
As if I didn't hear you yell the first time.
If you mute your
Sorry.
computer, there it is.
It was me. It was my fault. Sorry.
Kyle, could you repeat that?
Appreciate it, respect it.
I had the live feed running so I can make sure.
I have no issue with us using hot funds to to pay the overtime or extra pay for police officers during a holiday weekend.
Never said we can't do it, said we should do it.
Can you elaborate as to why it's a hot fund?
Can you hear us? Yeah, okay. Can you repeat
Was
that?
there a question to me, Caesar?
Yes, Kyle, could you please explain why it would be an allowable hot expense?
The only reason that we need extra police officers is because we're gonna have extra people coming to the city to celebrate that holiday. It wouldn't be necessary under normal circumstances. But Fourth of July brings people in to spend money at restaurants, et cetera, in Kima. It wouldn't be there but for these people that are coming in to spend the money.
Okay. Any other questions for Kyle?
Attorney says it's okay. Is he willing to go to the hot fund court of law and represent us for free, should this come back on us?
Is that a thing?
I don't know.
It is now.
There you go, he's spoken into existence.
I don't think he heard you.
All right.
I'll make an motion to approve a budget funds transfer in the amount of up to $13,849.19 from hot contingency to the general fund for payment of additional officers to include a group of Galveston/Harris counties for response assistance for the 4th of July event.
We have a motion by Councilman Dustin Oliver. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilman Lee Wallace. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those nay?
Nay.
So Councilman Doug Meisinger voted nay. The rest voted positive, affirmative. The motion carries. Okay, we do not have an executive session tonight. And unless a councilman has any comment or discussion left, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:02 PM. Thank you.
If we're going to jail, at least I'm going to be watching.